Some of you are part of the WhatsApp group to receive the daily excerpts from Essence of the Bhagavad Gita. And reading those, we're reminded how the battle of Kurukshetra that's described, so much of it is also within us, that the characters portrayed are symbolic of the good and bad tendencies that are within each of us. And this symbolism, this way of telling symbolic stories, is even more prevalent in the Christian Bible, that Jesus lived almost at the lowest point of Kali Yuga. He couldn't speak openly about deeper truths. He would speak in parables, in symbolic stories. People would remember the story, but only a few people would understand the deeper, inner meaning of the story. And one of the more intriguing stories in the Bible is that of the 3 wise men and the star that they saw. And these were not kings, but sages. And at least one is said to be from India. And each one individually saw a star and followed it. And in the Bible, that story goes, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem, 3 wise men arrived in Israel, saying, "Where is he who has been born, King of the Jews? For we saw his star in the east, and we have come to worship him." And the star which they had seen went on before them, until it came and stood over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they rejoiced exceedingly with great joy. After coming into the house, they saw the child with Mary, his mother, and they fell to the ground and worshipped him. Then, opening their treasures, they presented to him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Now, outwardly, this story makes no sense. If they were following a physical star to Israel, they would follow it westward, not eastward. But in the Bible elsewhere, the Hebrew word for east also means the forehead. These saints were seeing the inner spiritual eye, the star in the spiritual eye, in the forehead, and they followed that until it took them to Israel. And other places, the Bible describes this light at the spiritual eye. "If your eye be single, your whole body shall be full of light. They shall see God's face, and his name shall be on their foreheads. There shall be no night there, for the Lord God gives them light. He brought me to the gate that looked to the east, and behold, the glory of God came to me from the way of the east." And Swami Kriyananda gives a thrilling description. He says, "The spiritual eye is seen as a ring of golden light, surrounding a field of intense, deep blue. In the center of that light shines a brilliant silvery white star. When the deeply meditating devotee is able to enter the golden light, he pierces the veil of space that separates the material universe from the astral universe. He beholds heaven and its angels. With ever deeper meditation, he is able actually to enter those heavenly realms. Meditating still more deeply, he enters the blue field, the causal world, where the thoughts were formed out of which heaven and earth were projected. The star at the center of the spiritual eye represents the kingdom of God. By passing consciously through the star, the devotee soars beyond creation into infinite bliss. This, finally, is cosmic consciousness. Yoganandaji claimed that there was a deep karmic connection between our direct line of gurus and the Master Jesus. He said that in later lives, the three wise men were incarnated as Babaji, Sri Yukteswar, Lahiri Mahashaya. And they were guided to Bethlehem to announce, to honor the birth of an avatar. And later in life, Jesus returned that visit and came to India. And at this time of year, with the descent of an avatar, there's a special blessing in the air that can be felt around the world. And hearts are more open. And we have a perfect opportunity to maximize those blessings. Next Sunday, for our spiritual Christmas, our all-day meditation, when we can consciously open ourselves, direct our energy upwards to the spiritual eye, and achieve that same cosmic consciousness. And we're extraordinarily blessed in this life to know that this is the goal of life, to have the guidance of God-realized masters, to have a sangha of friends who also support us and know that this is the goal of life. And through our efforts and God's grace, we can truly achieve our highest potential and our own true nature. And that divine potential is always with us. If a pickpocket sees a saint, he sees only pockets. But if the saint sees the pickpocket, he sees there a potential saint. And so we always have that choice. We can focus on the faults of ourselves and of others, or we can focus on our highest potential, our spiritual selves. We can be walking through the most beautiful forest, and if we have a pebble in our shoe, all of our concentration and consciousness may be on the pebble in our shoe. Finally, we get to take it out of our shoe, and we see that all of our trouble was caused by this little tiny insignificant thing. And so it is that we don't see the forest for the trees. We focus on the individual and not the bigger picture. A friend of mine, her mother was dying, and in the last weeks she slept in the same room with her mother, and then she finally passed away, and this woman went back to the same bedroom to spend the night, and she was concerned at how empty and alone she might feel. Instead, she was amazed. She went in the room, and there was a huge presence of joy and happiness. And she realized that her mother's soul was so much bigger than that little cage, that little shell of a body that she carried around for so many years. And so we also need to focus on that divine potential, the bigger picture. In Whispers from Eternity, Yoganandaji writes, the demand for opening of the spiritual eye, the eastern star of wisdom. Long my eyes were blinded by the tinsel glitter of materiality. Seeing things always outwardly, I saw not the spirit behind and within them. I saw the mustard seed of matter, but spied not the oil of spirit that it contained. My third eye of wisdom is now opened. Oh, may it always be so. Let the gaze of my single eye of realization penetrate through every veil of matter to behold the infinite presence of Christ consciousness everywhere. Om.
I'm also going to speak about the spiritual eye, but for just a moment I'm going to talk about our trip last week to Puri. It was a retreat and a pilgrimage to Puri where the body of our Param Guru, Swami Sri Yukteswar, is, and it's an incredible place to meditate. And there are many blessings about this trip, one of which several of our Delhi members were there, and we all got a chance to experience spiritual community together. We got to meditate together, eat together, play in the ocean together, and really dive deep in these deeply significantly powerful spiritual places together. And I think it sort of changed all of us. And so I just want to say that next time we have an opportunity of all of us Delhiites going somewhere and doing this together, I think we should all try to take advantage of it. It was really a life-transforming moment. Sri Yukteswar has the reputation of being very harsh and disciplinarian. And I meditated for the first time there in 1998 on my first Ananda pilgrimage. And I had a deep experience then and started to actually feel like I was getting to know my Param Guru and who this Guru was, who sort of was elusive in my heart previously. And I've been many times since, but this time in particular, meditating with our Guru Bhais here and also with Nayaswami Jyotish and Devi, had some deeply powerful, still moments there. And you know, really, Sri Yukteswar is all love. He's all love. And for those of you who receive Nayaswami Jyotish and Devi's blog every week, they wrote about their Puri experience. Devi did this past week, and I just wanted to share a little bit about that. They had been meditating in Sri Yukteswar's Samadhi Mandir 20 years ago with Swami Kriyananda, and the three of them dove very deep in meditation, and Swamiji was very deep and concentrated. And when they finished that meditation, Jyotish and Devi asked for Swami Kriyananda's blessing, which he gave lovingly and unassumingly. And when they went back this time, 20 years later, they could feel the spiritual vitality and power of Swami Sri Yukteswar just washing over them. And they reflected later, and in this blog, that, you know, it's not often that we're able to see sort of the results of actions or the progress that one makes or the cause and effect. And they were feeling that the blessing that they received from Swami Kriyananda 20 years ago very much manifested in the deep divine blessing they had in Sri Yukteswar Samadhi Mandir this trip just a week ago. And at the end of the letter, the blog, Devi says, when God created each of us, he also set into play a unique plan for how we would return to him. This plan is already underway for every one of us and will be fulfilled when the time is right, all that is needed in the meantime is our trust in Him. And so we're thinking of our trust in God, our faith in God, and going back to the story of the 3 wise men. You know, these wise men were following an intuition that was coming from their spiritual eye, coming from their wisdom, their connection with God. And there was something drawing them forward for them to take this long, long trip, probably months, or maybe even longer, to reach Israel, to reach Bethlehem. And that faith that they had was from their openness to be guided. And gazing up at the spiritual eye, at the point in the east, the star of the east, they're able to connect to that wisdom. They have divine vision. Something important is going to happen, and God is guiding me there. And at the same time, you know, at the same time that this miraculous event was happening, there were, according to the Bible, there were shepherds in the field. And these shepherds are uneducated and very, very humble. And at the same time, they also saw the physical star that the wise men were seeing. They saw the physical star, and they also perceived the angels that were there saying, wake up from your sleep and go, follow this star and see this miraculous event, the birth of an avatar that is happening. And that night, with the physical star that the wise men were following and the physical star that the shepherds saw, and there were some barriers dissolving between the physical world and the astral world and the causal world, because the wise men could see also the spiritual eye and the physical star. The humble, egoless shepherds could see angels, and they could see the physical star. And it guided them all in their faith and their trust to follow this star to the place where an incredible miracle was happening, that God was being born on earth in the form of an avatar. And so it wasn't the rich and the learned that were drawn, it was the humble and the wise that were drawn. And this divine vision of how we can be guided by God to see the divine around us. I was walking just a few days ago in the park nearby, and I got a late start. It was, 11:30, 12 in the morning, and I was sort of rushing, thinking, okay, I've got to get back. I'm not being very responsible. It's going for kind of a late walk this morning. So I was just sort of rushing through the park. But at the same time, I had my headphones on and I was listening. I was just starting to listen to Swami Kriyananda's oratorio, this music, one song which we just played you. But it's divine music about the life of Christ. And just as I sort of entered the park, this one song, it's called In the Spirit, began. And listening to Swamiji's voice sing about Christ and the vibration that Swamiji's voice carries for me, it's like sort of the carrier wave of the vibration of our gurus. Suddenly, I just shifted and my perception completely changed, and I slowed down. I looked on the path, there's this darling little bird, and I just stopped and looked at the bird, and then just felt the sun, and just was so grateful for the sun coming down on me, and then walked slowly and saw more birds in the trees, and was so grateful. There was grass all around me. I was walking on grass. I was in nature. There were trees everywhere, and in just a little bit, the dogs were there. I thought, what cute dogs. And suddenly my consciousness had just shifted from sort of this egoic role of have to be responsible, have to get back, to this walk is turned into a miracle for me. And what was the difference? It was a shift in consciousness. Out of my role, out of my ego, this is what I do, to like, God, what do you have in store for me right now? And what shifted that for me? For me, it was Swami singing this Christmas music. But we have to ask ourselves, what is it that shifts that for us? because you have to face it, most of the time we're pretty stuck in these ego roles. We wonder, what is it, what is it that I have to do to shift out of it? Because if I weren't doing what I do, what would I do? If I wasn't busy, so busy being who I think I am, who would I be? And we don't really take the time or maybe have the courage to ask ourselves those questions. In Festival of Light, Swami Kriyananda has the ceremony that the little bird is suddenly flying in the darkness. And he said, how can I fly in this darkness? And the answer comes, peace awaits you in the unknown. We may not know who we would be if we were able to drop our ego. We may be afraid of what that might look like. If I didn't do what I'm doing, what would I do? Who would I be? And so, where do we get that courage? Our hearts are going up in yearning, asking that question, who can I be? And our brain may not be asking that question, our ego certainly isn't asking the question, but the heart is asking the question. And the answer comes, the avatar descends. We have the birth of Jesus in the manger. We have the birth of Krishna. We have the birth of Guruji. We have the birth of that Christ consciousness in our heart that allows us to perceive the divine in everything. There's sort of the definition of Christ consciousness, being able to perceive spirit in every atom of creation. So we need to find that what it is for us that shifts our consciousness. And those avatars are born and they emanate to us all that we're seeking. They emanate the vibration of peace, of love, of power. They give us that courage. They're there emanating it at Christmas, now, all the time. And the question is, what do I need to do to receive that? So that's a question we all need to ask ourselves. And we can have the faith that God has a plan for us, and He's guiding us. We just need to be open and follow that plan. God bless you.